Welcome to Insights by OutsightX, a one-stop shop podcast for everything to know about the first year of the IPM batch at DoMS Nalsar. Today, with us, I have Mr. Ritvik, who has been one of my dearest friends from the first batch itself. To give you a bit more introduction about him, he's been a football player. He's been a national level football player. He's played with FSI, and we actually played a lot together in our first term year as well. Apart from that, he has been one of the founding members of the PlaceCom committee for the IPM batch in itself, and has worked with the committee for a very long time. Again, he has been one of the members who I have personally worked with in my internship with BAIF, which we're going to be talking about today. So that's going to give you a deeper insight into how the department functions. Alright, so asking about essentially the organization in itself, if you had to introduce BAIF to the world outside, how would you do it?
Alright, great start Ayush, thanks for having me here. It's going to be a great start for us from right here. So talking about our internship experience over here, so we actually went to the Bharatiya Agro Foundation, also known as BAIF, that initiated about 57 years ago. So they had their golden jubilee in the year 2016. Now, when we look at our experience from it, we have this simplified version that gets created, this NGO system or NGOs in general, from what you experience from the outside world or what you perceive, is quite drastic from what you experience over there. You have this outlook of they're not going to have funding, they're not going to have maybe sufficient amount of workers also over there, and maybe a rural setup. You come in with this thought process, but then when you actually go there and you do the work over there, meet the villages over there, the experience that you have is life changing over there.
Alright, so moving on. Now we do know from the working of the PlaceCom itself, I've had a lot of conversations with you about this. We have had a number of hundreds of NGOs with us in the first round. We started whittling them down in round 1, in round 2, round 3, ending up with like round 4 or 5 with a couple of NGOs depending on how many people are supposed to go there, what's the timeline, what kind of work will we be given, and what's the stay and accommodation portion that's going to be handled. So speaking completely from a PlaceCom perspective and from a department perspective, how did you figure out what NGOs to reach out for, what NGOs to whittle down? Because it's going to be our first, batch of 60 people that's going to be going out.
Right, so round 1 started off with about 100 NGOs.
Right.
So we had, the PlaceCom was initially a 5-member team, and all 5 of us had individually taken up a set of 20 to 25 NGOs ourselves. And then we had to get down their information and stats of what they do, how they do it. Now that the rounds went on and on, because not every NGO is going to accept interns at this stage, or they may not. They may have various factors that come into play over there. So in our final round, we ended up with about 17 NGOs, and we had about 61 students in our class.
Right.
So an average allocation of 3 to 4 students per NGO. Right. So that was the broad idea of how we came. But then to look out for NGOs, one is the work that they do, one is the long-standing tradition that they had,
definitely,
and the experience that they have in that field. So those were one of the key factors that were taken up during our meetings and how we reached out to them as well.
Right, and like you told me beforehand as well, a lot of our professors had also been in constant contact with them and figured out their relations with these NGOs and figured out their work culture, and then thought we can send our first batch out in the wild. So now that I have had your official answer for this, what is a more personal perspective that you thought and went, this is the NGO I want to work for, and I'm going to get 4 of my other friends and come work for you because this looks like a good place?
Right. So first off, an NGO, when you look at it, you can have CSR activities, you can have educational activities,
right,
you can have agricultural activities or horticulture or poultry, and there are various sections that every NGO can go for.
Right.
But then when I looked at this NGO, the thing that appealed to me is how diverse they are in India, because obviously they have been in India established by Dr. Manibhai Desai, and he had worked with Gandhiji also. So that historical factor also comes into play, that you've had this connection with Gandhiji also that time, and then the work that they do is inherently influenced by his values and his culture.
Right.
So that's one of the key factors that also came in there.
Perfect. Also going, a bit deeper into it. Now, we have been in a situation where we have lived in metropolitans, we've lived in cities, and we have this whole perception of life as it is here. Now, what was your experience from landing at the airport, taking 150 kilometer journey from there and coming to a remote location in the south of Gujarat, figuring out one small village and one small port and one part essentially, which gives you an insight into a different culture, a different world altogether, as we saw. What was your car journey from the airport to the institute like?
Right, so actually I'll give you a backstory to this. So we were supposed to go to BAIF Pune, BAIF Pune.
Right.
That is the headquarters. So what happened was the reporting officer in charge of South Gujarat had reached out to us after that based on his officers has also mentioned this to him. So we ended up going to South Gujarat and now I've never been to Surat for saying.
Yeah.
So once I landed there, Surat airport drastically different from any of the previous airports I've been to. And then we have a 120-kilometer journey from the airport to the village Lachakadi. That's where our NGO was.
Right.
And I would say that barring all the jet lag, barring any of the other factors that come into play that, okay, what am I going to do once I go there? It's just the journey was so refreshing because you went on this road trip where all you could see is like villages, you could see farms, you could see trees and all along the way.
Right.
Only thing, it was slightly hot, so I wouldn't give it the credit that I want to give it to, but then it was quite an experience to go there.
Right. And I do remember the whole journey that we had taken. I had personally come from railway station from there. The one car that they had sent for everybody, that one journey from, getting this, I think Chevrolet Tavera, if you remember everything. Yeah.
Right.
That came and picked us up and this one, solitary journey of this one driver that we knew for life. That bhaiya was one of the, people that we intricately related to because I ended up leaving in the middle as well for the paper presentation. So this one person that, that was intricately involved in our internship life from the starting was, one of the first people that we met from BAIF itself. So, what was your first impression of, your reporting officers like?
Right. So as soon as we reached campus, day one, we met our reporting officer, Mr. Abhishek Pandey, who is the additional chief program executive of BISLD South Gujarat, which is full form for BAIF Institute for Sustainable Livelihood and Development. And we also met our senior project officer, Mr. Bhavin Mehta, right on day one. Once we went there, Abhishek sir actually told us, all four of you have your lunch, get ready, we're going on our first field trip. It was instant impact once we reached there. So when we got into this car, as you said, Chevrolet Tavera, so all four of us and the two of us were sitting back facing each other because it's a slightly older model.
Yeah.
And we didn't know what we were going to do there. We just went on this trip. We went to the village Chonda right there.
Yep.
We were in and around Lachakadi. And what we witnessed was, I don't have words to describe it because when you go in with this thought process of, I don't know what I'm going to do once I go there, because it's going to be new for any one of us. The experiences that you have, like, you really don't have words to describe it. And after a point, we didn't know how much distance we took over. So actually the village was 60 kilometers away.
Yeah.
And we thought we actually went about 10 to 15 kilometers in and around the campus. And by the time we came back to our campus, it was dinner time. All four of us were exhausted and we just wanted to hit the bed after that. But then day one was real nice.
What was the work setting like at BAIF itself?
So BAIF, the historical factor about BAIF is wherever it goes, it makes an impact in and around itself. So the WADI model started off as a basic understanding, it's not only to improve the farmer's income. Like when we look at these models, you come in with a thought process that you need to get more profit, you need to get more revenue, and that's it. That's how you improve farmers' lives. But then BAIF had this value system right from its start, that you need to create this value system amongst your family also in and around how you do your work, how you earn more profit, how you plant and have the sustainable development that you create for yourself only and for your family after that. So this WADI model also started with that. So we had this comparison with the Food for Work program that started out there. And BAIF actually renamed it as Forest and Food for Work program.
Right, yeah.
That is one of the versions which they had. So it essentially involves a 1 acre land. So you have this 1 acre land, and Lachakadi, being famous for its mango cultivation and its cashew nut cultivation, was one of the key crops that were ended up growing in the WADI models.
Alright, so going deeper into the work setting of the NGO in itself, I remember the first week that we were there, we did some heavy, literature review once we were there. We looked at BAIF journals over there, we looked at the previous work they've done, and we also saw, what they've tried to achieve as a, a social change in itself. Like you said, BAIF is not just trying to work on agriculture, it's bringing out a larger social change through, its activities. Might just be the, FWP or the forestry program in itself, or, might be, awareness programs that went on, because while we were there were at least 3 or 4 more programs that were held there. So what was your experience regarding this whole multicultural situation that came into it.
Right. So what happened was, so we are first years. When we go into this NGO, we are still considered as first years.
Yeah.
And the work that they do has been obviously over the past few years. They've had interns coming from their fourth year BTech onwards. You know, that is one of the baseline that they create. You know, you have to be fourth year or above, or MBA or PhD, any other field that you have. So when we come in as first year interns, the concept of what we know and what they know is quite different, you know. So our first week, as you said, was a literature review. So our reporting officer had mentioned this to us that you need to start learning first, because this is not going to be us teaching you. This is not going to be us taking you everywhere. You need to hit the ground running, and for that you need to be ready. So 1 week or a fortnight, we're going to give you that time, and you need to go through. They had a brilliant library over there for an NGO, and the office building also as well. It was nicely organized also.
Yeah.
So the library consisted of all their journals, all their research papers, any other books published, and any other conferences that happened in and around that area also. So this period of about 10 days gave us a basic understanding and idea of how BAIF functioned, how their models worked out, historically how they've had created this model, and also helped the surroundings, the area which they got involved with.
Yeah. So right now we had 6 people on ground, you know, in BAIF, Lachakadi, the first campus that we ended up going. It was you, it was me, it was Chetas, it was Lalit Nair, it was Tanushka Chatterjee, and there was Shweta Paidimari. We were the 6 people that started off everything in that campus in itself. And now remember Abhishek sir coming to us and saying, देखो 4 का group तो नहीं बनेगा, because I am pretty sure one of the people will skimp out on working. Right. So we thought, to increase the number of, you know, the amount of responsibility you have, why not make it 2 groups? Starting off with the 3 projects that came out, you and I took up the, you know, the business model of a 1 acre land with 4 to 5 annual revenue. Lalit and Chetas ended up taking the apiary business model that was not done in Lachakadi beforehand, so that gave them a new source of revenue in itself, which we also included in our business plan as well. And then there was the trellis cultivation model and the creeper cultivation model that came in with the help of Shweta and Tanishka. Alright, so now that the, you know, information heavy portion is slowly coming to an end, we're going to go to an interactive session, or a sort of a rapid fire session. Right. So we have some questions coming up. The first one would be to be answered just in one word, or in one phrase, if you will. Yeah. So what comes to your mind when I say the name BAIF?
Down to earth.
Right. And what the one word you use to describe your entire 45-day experience at BAIF?
Just simplified.
Right. We're not in a location that's primarily rural. Right. You will not find a McD, you will not find a Domino's, you will not find any fast food joint that you might crave at the end of the night. Right. We would barely get a couple of, you know, Cokes and something like these from nearby villages. We used to walk for a kilometer to get that, but it was a fun walk. Anyway. But what about a couple of experiences? Like, we remember ordering food and actually going to get it for a couple. We paid a lot of money to an auto rickshaw guy to go drive us there so we can have some brownies and come back. Right. So what was that experience like for you?
Right, so thing is, when you mentioned Coke, I didn't want to say right then, but we had these 2 drinks, one GS lemon and one Tirupati lemon. You know, those 2 drinks were the drinks for us over there. Chips packets, 5 rupee packets. Okay, you don't get 10 rupee packets. When you come in, like any other retail joint you go, 10 rupee packets minimum. We got 5 rupee packets there, and we hoarded after that. That one shop got 4 guys, every alternate day, 4 guys just go to that shop, buy like 20 packets. The seller also is surprised over there, like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
No one does that over there.
Because we went and directly bought a munch box.
Right.
So that would bring us to the final moments of the podcast. Thanks for listening. This is brought to you by the first year batch of IPM at Nalsar, which is now the second years, unfortunately. But we're going to be back with more episodes. We're going to be back with more people, more invigorating stories, more invigorating NGOs, and better life experiences. This is your host, Ayush Nigam, signing off for now.